Hi, everyone. Welcome to LLK number 75. That is Knit with Laura and Lola. I'm Laura Nelkin, and I am joined by my alter ego, Lola. I'm a knitwear designer who lives in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and Lola likes to distract me. So between the two of us, this should be a really fun live. I have a ton to tell you about tonight, and if you are new to watching my lives, I like you to know that if you're watching live, there is chat happening in the chat thread. And I try to not keep an eye on that because I get distracted super easily. Towards the end of this live, I will ask if there are any questions and then I will look over there. So if you are watching live right now, if you want to say hey and say where you're watching from, it's really fun for everybody to see where you're all chiming in from. I hope everybody has some knitting and some tea or a glass of wine or whatever floats your boat in the evening. Some of you might be onto whiskey, who knows? It was a hump day today for sure. So if you are watching live, know that when I am done with the live, I will be updating the show notes underneath with links for everything that I'm talking about. So if there's anything that I'm talking about that you want to know more about, know that those links will end up underneath this video when I'm done. So like if I talk about yarn or a pattern or fabric I found, that will all be in the show notes. So that's kind of my housekeeping, except for one last thing, which is I really suck at reminding people to like my videos and subscribe to my channel. So if you could go ahead and take a minute and just hit the like button, even if you don't like me, if you could hit the like button, that would be amazing. And then also make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I've noticed with lives that my viewership is quite down, and I think it's because I'm not like asking people to interact as much as I should be. So go ahead and do that, please and thank you. I appreciate you. All right. So it looks like the chat is happening. It seems like everybody can hear me. We got some new lights, which are honestly a tiny bit bright. I'm trying not to squint. I could use some sunglasses tonight. Um, Tonight, I'm going to tell you all about Knit for Food, which is on April 11th. If you don't know what Knit for Food is, it is a 24-hour knit, sorry, it is not 24 hours, Lola. It is a 12-hour knitting marathon that raises funds for hunger and food insecurity. We are raising funds from 4 organizations. They are Feeding America, Meals on Wheels, No Kid Hungry, and World Central Kitchen. And what is phenomenal about Knit for Food is that 100% of the funds that we raise are split equally between those 4 organizations. I know that many of you who are watching tonight are already signed up to knit with us. It is not too late to sign up and knit with us. It's basically just like running a marathon or swimming across a lake. When you sign up, you get a link, and then you take that link and you send it to your friends and family, and you say to them, hey, do you want to sponsor me in knitting for 12 hours? I'm doing this hard thing. Maybe you want to like knit a hat or scarf or bag or something, and one of your donors could win that. It's really fun to see what everybody's coming up with as incentives to get people to donate to their page. If you donate to my page, which if you go to, I guess if you go to, the easiest way to get there would be to go to knitforfood.com and then scroll down and find my picture, which comes up right away, and click on it. Everyone who donates to my team is going to get a coupon code for a free pattern once the knit-a-thon is over, probably around April 13th. I will send those out. So that's a pretty good incentive. Plus, I've made a few things. I made a bag. I'm going to raffle off a few things to my donors that I've made for you all. I'm working on some bracelets, having a good time with that. So I would love for you to join us if you aren't already. I always like to kind of do a little refresh when we're watching. As of right now, we have raised $257,778. In my experience, this is the 6th year of Knit for Food. In my experience, we double the amount that we raise in the last 7 days of fundraising. So if that happens again, that means we're going to be raising about $514,000, which just blows me away. We'll see if we get there or not. No pressure, but keep working, keep sending out your links. Now is the time to be really loud and telling people about the Knit-a-thon. One thing that is pretty cool is we have our schedule for the Knit-a-thon this year. So the schedule for the day of, we have Zoom programming in the morning and in the evening. Many of you are going to public meetups during the day if there's one near you, or Zooming with friends. But we have a Zoom in the morning from 10 to around 12:15 where we hear from 3 of the 4 organizations. And then we also do some chair yoga with Angie Reach of the Traveling Yarn Yogi. So that'll be really great. We'll learn some moves to stretch and stay limber, things that we can do throughout the day to keep our bodies comfortable. And then we will take a break during the day and come back around 7 p.m. And then we'll hear from World Central Kitchen, and we'll have some after hours ergonomics with Carson Demers, and learn about things we can do to keep our bodies safe for the coming days after we've been knitting for 12 hours. Then we'll have a really awesome game night with Patty Lyons and friends. We have a rehearsal for that on Monday, and I know it's going to be a freaking hoot as usual. And then at 9:30, we did this thing last year where we had people uploading photos from the day into a Google Drive, and we showed photos from all around the country from the public meetups and listened to some music. And then we had our thank yous and closing until we're done at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. That Zoom link is sent to everyone who has raised $100 or more. It's important to know, to get that Zoom link, that you need to be signed up as a fundraiser, not just have donated $100 to somebody else's team. We had a little bit of confusion with that last year. I am very proud of myself because today I was like, I know there is a way to take all the data from the public meetups and populate a Google map so that the map is clickable and linkable. And I was really smart today, and I Googled, how do you turn a Google spreadsheet with addresses into a Google map? And I quickly figured out how to do it. So now that we have a map, and I'll make sure to put that link to the map in the next email I send out to Knit for Food, and like in the Facebook group and in our on our Instagram page. But now we have a map that's totally linked and clickable, so you can look in your state really easily and then see where meetups are near you. We clearly have a bunch in the Northeast and then spread out across the country. If you're thinking about setting up a meetup, even if it's just like at your local Panera or brewery, and you, especially if you notice there's a state that doesn't have a meetup, go ahead. It's never too late to add those to the public meetup list. I'm adding to this all the time, and it's really fun to see where all of the meetups are popping up. So exciting. I think we have like 99 meetups, which is a record for us. When we first started Knit for Food, it was the pandemic, and so there were no public meetups. And having added public meetups and having added teams now has really like raised the awareness of Knit for Food, the amount of money that we are fundraising, and also the fun that we're all having as we get together and raise funds for hunger and food insecurity. Knit for Food is my favorite day of the year. I wish we had a year where I could say, this is not necessary. We do not need to raise funds for this anymore. Our government is helping take care of those who are hungry and in need. That is not the case. As we all know, benefits are being cut left, right, and backwards. And Knit for Food, I believe, is needed more than ever. So thank you so much for your participation in it. I will keep yammering about it I'm not going to stop talking about it. I got the sign up back here. I've got my good luck Knit for Food cronies who hang out with me in Knit for Food season, and we are good to go. Other things I am talking about tonight besides Knit for Food is what is on my needles and what is off my needles. I'm excited to talk to you a bit about Novus Shorties, a pattern, the Lola's Choice pattern that released at the beginning of March. I am going to show you some things that I've sewn since I've seen you last. I had a little sewing jag before I left for Portugal. I am going to talk to you about my Portugal trip that I got to go on with SBJ Retreats, which was a blast. It was very fun to not be in charge of an international trip and just be like, I called myself the hired hand, like I was on and then I was off. And I have this little trick that if I'm wearing my glasses, I'm like in teacher mode. And then if I'm wearing my contacts, I'm basically my alter ego Lola, and I'm really, really fun. And that helps make it so that when I'm at an event like that, people know kind of when to approach me about work stuff and when to like just hang out with me and have fun. We had a great time. So I'm going to show you photos from that and probably a few other things I'm not remembering right now. Oh, I'm going to announce the winners from the first quarter knit along in my Librarian Facebook group because that ended yesterday. So I've got the winners to announce today. Lots, and I've got their prizes to show you as well. So let's jump right in. What is off my needles right now is the May Lola's Choice design, and that is off to the tech editor. I have a photo shoot in 2 weeks to get photos of that right after Knit for Food, and it is going, the kits are off to the testers. I printed labels today to send out to the testers, so they'll have the pattern as soon as it's back from tech editing. Very excited about this next design and kit. It is perfect for spring. I knit it on the Portugal cruise when nobody could see me, so I was either in my room or on the plane once I knew people were already in their seats because I had a few other knitters on my plane and I didn't want anybody to see it. A little hint I could tell you is I did do some beading on the plane and I managed to do that without spilling my beads, so I'm pretty proud of myself. When I do that, I always just put a small amount of beads in my little bead tin and I keep the rest in a plastic bag. So if I do flip over my bead tin, I have more and I can keep going and I don't have to like crawl around on the floor and try to pick them up. I did that once and it was gross. Not a place you want to crawl around to pick up beads is all I'm saying, on the floor of the airplane. The other thing that is off my needles, and you'll see some photos of this later on when I show you the pants that I sewed, is Lowland Cheetah, which if you watched a live last year, I was working on this and I wasn't happy with the yoke. I ended up taking some stitches out of the yoke, but keeping the body size the same. And I'm much happier with the fit of the yoke. This yoke does have a lot of texture to it. So the yoke is a little bit like billowy and it has like a little bit of fabric to it, but it's fitting so much better than it was before. And right now, this version is kind of funny because I've got a short sleeve and a cap sleeve because I wanted my testers to see that you could do either. It's a little wrinkly from being in my bag from traveling, but I'm about to rip back the right here and put the cap sleeve onto this side for photography because I really like that little short sleeve on me. I just like I'm suddenly, as things progress, I'm liking covering right here a little more. I used to have no problem showing that, but maybe I just need to start going to the gym a little more. I don't know. So Lowland Cheetah, super cute little summer sweater. It also has a long sleeve version, which I have on my needles right now. I've got a bunch of people testing it. I know a few of you are over there in the chat, and I am on my needles right now is a long sleeve version that I was knitting while I was in Portugal. Right before I left for Portugal, I realized that I needed something that was just stockinette stitch in the round because that I can knit that and walk really easily if I just have stockinette stitch in the round. So I did the bottom border on the plain and then I knit the body, and now I'm up to the yoke, which you can kind of see the yoke right here. The yoke takes a little bit more concentration and time, and the first section is like 24 rounds, which have a lot of stitches on them, and I'm halfway through that, and then it will get faster. So In my dream world, I would have this done before my next photo shoot, which is like April 14th. We'll see if that happens because I've got a few other things to get done as well. But the yarn that I'm knitting this with, and I want to kind of show it to you over the overhead camera, is Jill Draper Make Stuff Lee in a colorway Clear Skies. And this yarn is really, really beautiful. It's a 60% Rambouillet wool that's actually from the Finger Lakes region and 40% alpaca, which is also from New York State. I believe it's milled in Vermont, I believe, this one. And I am going to get a whole long sleeve sweater, although I really love my long sleeves to end about here. So I'm going to call it like a 3/4 length sleeve sweater out of one skein, partially because I made the body a little bit shorter because I really love like a cropped, boxy, lightweight sweater. I'm knitting it, if I show you the fabric under my needles, and you'll see this again. I probably shouldn't be telling you this much this early. I'm knitting it at 5 stitches to the inch, so it's really, really loose and airy because this is a lace weight yarn that blooms and blossoms. So you can see the stitches are a little bit uneven. This yarn is gorgeous because it's got this really lovely heather to it, but the blue is so, so pretty. And I'll show you some pictures in a few minutes of me knitting it in Portugal, and it just seemed to like match everything so well. So well. So I'm a little obsessed with that. That's on my needles. Another thing that is on my needles is Novus Shorties. So the Novus Shorties were March Lola's Choice kit. Lola's Choice is my small knitted kit club. And a few of you have already knit your Novus Shorties. Some of you are getting ready to jump right into them. And they are a very fun knit. And I'm thinking about sock construction in a whole new way with Novus Shorties. So the Novus Shorties actually start with a panel that goes along the top of your foot, and then the toe is worked next, and then the sole is worked using my Novus construction, where you're working back and forth and binding off stitches that are wrapped around the edge of the instep. And I'm going to show you, I have a few step outs right here so I can show them to you. I was working on one while I was in Spain. That was a really, really fun, sorry, not Spain, Portugal. I was in Spain for one day. That is in this really fun yarn. So if we go to the overhead camera for a second, what Novus Shorties look like when you start to work on them is they have this little panel, and I work my technique called Lola's pickup line along the edge of the panel. And what that does is wrap your yarn around the beginning of your work. So those are the stitches that are bound off later when you go to do the sole. And then after you work the panel for your foot, you then work the toe right off of that panel. And people have been calling this different things. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I see something slightly inappropriate when I look at this phase of the Novus Shorty. But that is because Lola and I have a very dirty mind, and we can't unsee things once we see them. So this is the Novus Shorty with that strip work, the instep strip, and then the toe. And if you look right here on a sock, on a finished sock, you can see the instep right there, that instep panel along the top. And then you see the toe right there worked right off of that. And after you work that, these have been worn once or twice because I love wearing them and they fit so well. You start to work back and forth flat on the sole, and you're binding off those wraps that were on the stitches right there along the edge of the instep panel. I will tell you that the Novus Shorties have an 1.5 hour long detailed video tutorial that walks you through every step of working the pattern. So the pattern's available on my website and on Ravelry, and the link to that video is in the pattern, and watching them and working them together is really helpful and spot on. I ended up deciding for while I was traveling, and I'm extra in love with this sock because it is basically the Knit for Food colors. I bet they're knowing me, they're going to be done by next Knit for Food. But the first one, I'm almost done with the heel flap, and I think I'm going to end up working these as a taller sock. So the Novus Shorty pattern has a option to work a taller sock or a little lined cuff. But the yarn that I'm using for this is so fun, and I'm going to show it to you in the overhead so you can really see it. It's from Knit Spit Farm. Knit, not Knit Spit Farm. Knit Spin Farm, and I got it at the Knitting Concierge in Lake Park, Florida, which is outside of West Palm Beach. Sometimes when I can't remember where I bought something, I just write it on the inside of the label. So you saw my little cheat right there. And it's a Corriedale sock. And I believe that this was a dye job she did with a self-striping yarn for September, and it's for a club that she did, and it was National Mushroom Month. So all of the stripes are for different mushrooms. I just saw in the chat that somebody said that they're going to call it a mushroom, that state phase. I like that mushroom phase. So this colorway is perfect for the mushroom phase of your Novus Shorty. And I've never knit with a Corriedale sock yarn before. It's 75% superwash Corriedale and 25% nylon. It is a little bit thicker than the yarn which I used for my Novus Shorties, and I'm knitting it at the same gauge, and it is making a dense, warm fabric. So the yarn that I used for my Novus Shorties is this Concept by Katya sock yarn. That's a 75-25 superwash merino and nylon, and it's got this really cool kind of gradient striping. It is a little bit of a thinner sock yarn than this Corriedale yarn, and so it makes a fabric for a sock that's really great for spring and like not deep into summer, but spring and fall for sure. I don't tend to love to wear my shorties when it's like 80 degrees out. I know some of you do. So that's part of why I think this will be better as a taller sock. And I think what I'll do once I'm done with the heel flap, you can see right here, these are the provisional cast on from the beginning of that instep panel. When I'm all done, I'll probably set this aside and I'll work the second one. And then I might do 2 at a time to get the most out of the legs and see how long I can get them. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that yet, but I've been having a really fun time knitting this because it's really fun to get to the next color change. I love how she has these like little speckles of white happening in there, and that the stripes aren't perfectly solid. Like you can really see all of the colors happening in there. I'd not heard of Knit Spin Farm before. I believe that this skein of yarn was actually the owner's stash that she was selling at Knitting Concierge, because I saw it on like a bottom shelf and was like, I think I really need to have you. So I'm glad I bought it. And then it's a bonus that it's the Knit for Food colors, right? So that's a little bit about Novus Shorties. I've got those on my needles. I also have that Scudola I showed you in the last live that I'm knitting for Max, and I'm pretty sure that's going to become my like pick it up, put it down project, because he's not going to need it till next November. So I get a little time to work on that till next fall, which is nice. And then I'm also working on Cordelias in 9 different colors for kits that are going to come out later this month. The other thing I finished that's going to release really soon, hopefully right after Knit for Food, is Carte Blanche. This is a smaller size of Carte Blanche. There's also a larger size that I've been wearing a ton. There were a few people wearing it on the cruise, so you'll see some photos of people wearing the larger Carte Blanche. And so that's coming out really soon for those of you who've been waiting for that. There's a few other things I want to get on my needles. I will tell you that like a month ago, I had absolutely nothing on my needles. I like was having a very hard time making decisions about things. I wasn't sure what the May Lola's choice was going to be. Now I already know what the July Lola's choice is going to be. I've been kind of working ahead a little bit. I feel like I allowed myself to sew for a few weeks in March, which you're about to see. And I almost needed that as a little reset to kind of get back into my knitting groove. And I'm glad I didn't freak out when it happened. I'm glad I just like let it be, kind of honored the space that I just can't be inspired for knitting all the time. And now I have too much for my needles again. So I'm feeling better because for a little bit there, I had like, honestly, I had nothing on my needles until I cast on Max's Scudola. And then I had one thing on my needles. And that's a tiny bit scary when you're a knitwear designer and you make your living selling knitting patterns, right? Okay. Focused. I already told you about Jill Draper Makes Stuff Lee as yarn. And then I'm going to show you more yarn as part of what I got in Portugal. So I think it makes sense to show you Portugal photos and then talk about yarn, which will lead into the prizes and the winners for the first quarter knit along. And then we'll kind of come to the sewing stuff and wrapping up, if that sounds good with everybody. So Portugal. Honored to be invited by SPJ Retreats to go on a cruise of the Douro River. The Douro River, we left from Porto, Portugal, and we went down the river. The name of the last port, I have my little itinerary here so I could remember. The name of the farthest we went to in Portugal was Vega de Terron, and that was so we could go to Salamanca. So I think we ended up docking the boat in Spain because basically the Douro River kind of splits and Portugal's on one side and Spain is on the other, and everyone on our boat was Portuguese, and there's a little heated rivalry between Portugal and Spain, which they really love to play up on the boat a lot. So we went down the river and we went back, and I didn't know that much about it going into it because I wasn't running the trip, so I didn't have the need to be like a little bit of an expert in it. So I really just kind of showed up and took it all in, and I did not realize how many locks we were going to go through. It's really cool to go through locks, and our boat was an Ama Waterways boat. It was the Ama Sintra, and it was just wide enough to go through these locks. Like at one point, my friend Jen and I were in our room and we were leaning over the balcony and we were going through a lock, and I swear there was like that much room on each side of the boat. We just slid right in. It was amazing. Very cool engineering, and being in the lock and just being in the dark and then having the lock open up and coming out into the light again. I posted a video of that on my Instagram the other day if you want to see it. It was pretty cool. I did do a time lapse because it took a little longer than you would have wanted to watch in a video. So I started my trip by meeting a smaller portion of the group in Lisbon for kind of a pre-tour. And the first thing we did, which I believe any good tour should start with, is going to a yarn store. So the first thing we did on the tour was go to Retrosaria Rosa Pomar. I know I'm not saying it super well. And this is a Portuguese yarn store that really specializes in yarns from Portugal that they have milled and made for them. And they do have some other yarns to kind of like round out what they have there, but they really like specialize and focus on their yarns. And the store was interesting because they really only had like one of every color of every yarn out, and then downstairs in the basement they had stock and stock and stock of yarn. So it was a little bit more like a showroom, which was cool. And the thing they had that I didn't know they were going to have is fabric. So when we're done going through photos, I'll show you the piece of fabric that I got from there that I am super excited about. So we started there and did some yarn shopping and yarn learning. And Rosa taught us a bit about the different sheep in Portugal. For those of you who've heard about Wool Dreamers in Spain, the work that she's doing is somewhat similar to Wool Dreamers in that she's working with local breeds and helping kind of strengthen those local breed lines and then making yarn out of them. She also did a demo on Portuguese knitting, which a few people on the trip continued to kind of learn and play with after she explained it. If you're interested in Portuguese knitting, knitting. I did see that Modern Daily Knitting just did a great blog post on it, and that would be a good resource to read more about it. And then that sweater on the right is a sweater that's one of their designs from the shop that is super sweet. And it was really fun to get to see it in real life because I've seen photos of it many times, but never actually got in to see it in person. So that's all of us from the pre-cruise in the shop, just like a little bit of yarn fumes. I was telling you about carte blanche. I'm actually wearing it in this shot. I'm down on the floor on the bottom, squatting, wearing my carte blanche, which is like the perfect weight for the kind of weather that we were having. Then we went to the Monasterio de Jeronimos, and I was super inspired by the architecture because it just looked like lace and lace edgings, like everywhere I looked. So this might be the place that I took the most photos. It was a really, really stunning monastery. I'm sorry that I don't remember when it was built. We did do a tour, and I know that I could have Googled it for you and had that data, but I am not a historian. But look at those little motifs right there. So cool. And the ceiling, come on, like that is like a cable with lace that's just begging to be knit at some point. Look at that right there. That's kind of looking from the outside in. You can see the spire way in the distance. When I got up close to that, it actually looked exactly like a yarn ball. Of course it did. I also fell in love with the pathways across the street from the monastery. There was a garden that was put in by the convent that was next to the monastery. And I think this is like bluestone and limestone. I'm not totally sure of that. We didn't have a tour guide with us at that point, but it looked really good with my knitting. So I was that person who kept throwing my knitting on the ground and then taking pictures of it. But like, look at that blue of Jill Draper's yarn against the stone. That's me. I'm that person. This was a mosaic kind of, it was the pathway up to a tower, and I just fell in love with it. I took pictures of it from every angle, but we were walking all over it, and just look at those like sinuous lines and the way the color moves from like the checkered board to being random to the checkerboard again. There was inspiration just like in every eyeful in Lisbon. The next day we went to Sintra. And Sintra is a palace that's built up in the mountains. It was built, I learned, before Neuschwanstein, which is in the Bavarian Alps, that we went to as a family probably like 10 years ago. But it was like very similar, and it's kind of like Disney World. It's sometimes called like the mustard and ketchup castle because there's like that. Do you see the red spire and then the yellow spire right there? But it was just ornate, and there was stuff going on everywhere. It was really interesting, lots of eye fills. So we wandered around and explored that. It was like a little breezy. You can see we're wearing raincoats here. We actually got pretty lucky with the weather. It could have been much worse than it was. This might have been like our rainiest tour day. I loved the tiles there. These were hand painted, really old tiles. And I loved like just following the lines with tile work from tile to tile. I'm a little bit obsessed with that. And then these tiles looked exactly like yarn balls for me. So, I was taking lots of pictures of those. And then we went on to Porto and we met everyone in our group. And I kind of stopped taking as many pictures, but you'll get an idea of what a lock looks like outside of Porto here. And that's just like the very end of our boat right there, and a bridge that we went underneath at one point. Here is like a gorgeous night photo of the river. I don't think I took this one. I think someone else in the group got that, but look at the shadows of the trees. It was just so beautiful and peaceful and fun to be with everybody. We did some good hiking. So one of the things I loved about Ama Waterways is they split us up into like the hikers, the regulars, and the gentles. So there was like a tour for everybody, no matter like where you were at. So this day we were going up the holy staircase. Don't be surprised that I chose to go with the hikers. I actually knit all the way up this staircase, which I got some hell from some of the husbands when I made it to the top. They were like, that is not safe. but I was just knitting stockinette stitch in the round. I think there were like 696 steps, but you all know I hike to Gannick every week, and that has more steps than that. So it wasn't actually that big a deal, but it was really beautiful. And the views from the top when we got to the monastery and the chapel looking down were really, really beautiful. Um, when we were coming down, we decided to take some pictures of us all knitting. There was like this beautiful little like grotto area that we got some photos in. Um, I wound my yarn on the bus, so there was lots of knitting on this trip, and I love winding a skein of yarn on the bus when I know I have enough time to wind the whole ball. So I did a little hand wind on my thumb, which is one of my favorite ways to wind yarn on the go. Sometimes I prefer it over a skein and ball winder. Um, and then after I wound my yarn, we ended up at a quinta for dinner. And this is Tia Maria in the middle. And she was a hoot. I have no idea if the stories she spun for us were like 100% real or a little bit embellished, but she was just really passionate and clearly loves what she does. She invited us into her family home that was her family's home for generations. And then I think her family lost it, and she was able to buy back the family home. And she says that she did that by selling scarves, and that like her scarves got onto some like newscaster show, and then everybody started buying them, and she just sold like thousands and thousands of scarves. And then after she fed us a bunch of port, which was really yummy, we were also welcome to buy thousands and thousands of scarves from her. It was actually like pretty brilliant, like kind of tourist marketing fun. Like, and then we got to walk through her home and see all of her photos and tchotchkes. And I was blown away by like how little dust there was everywhere in her home, but it was just really beautiful. And then we went into the downstairs area where she hosts events. People have weddings there. And we had a really, really lovely dinner. I will go back to my photos. I got distracted. But one thing I got that I'll show you in a bit is a sweater that is not very high quality fabric, but the shape of it is so good, and you're going to see it in the future in some version of a design. And then here's all of us eating downstairs. You can see it's just this like big long room. There's like stuff everywhere, gorgeous fun tchotchkes everywhere. And we had a great meal together. It was a really, really fun long evening because we were out all day. Here's just some photos of me with friends. There was a lot of chatting and catching up. That's my friend Jen on the left, who came with me as my plus one. She's one of my oldest friends. I've known her since I was in my early 20s, and she is not, well, I'm not sure I can say she's not a knitter anymore. She wasn't a knitter when she came on this trip, but I might have gotten her. In the middle, there's Laura and I, or sorry, Laura and myself wearing an answer together. It was just a gorgeous day. And then over on the right, that is me and Kim O'Brien from Indigo Dragonfly. And she was one of the other teachers on the boat. And we hadn't gotten to spend this much time together in a while. And it was really fun to get to catch up. This is a photo, believe it or not, I took from the bus while it was driving. And the drives were so gorgeous. You can see all the terracing, the just kind of like mountainous landscape. I see someone asking what the scarf I'm wearing is. I'll tell you in a sec. Sorry, I looked over. See, I told you I get distracted. But it was so beautiful, all of the drives that we did. It was really stunning, stunning countryside. Lots of wine. The almonds were blooming. The apple trees were blooming. It was just kind of breathtaking. There's some of us, we got to stop for a little surprise Vista stop, and we got a photo. These are all my Florida buddies who I see when well, not Anne, she moved to San Diego, but when I go down to see my parents in Florida, I get to visit with these guys, which is always really fun. And here is Gloria and Tracy wearing lake hugs that they knit for the trip. And we ran outside to take a photo on a sunny day. And I think the next photo is really funny. So we ran in front of all these people sitting in chairs This is what it looks like if you're a husband and you go on a knitting trip and everybody else is in knitting class and the weather is good. They were all like lined up. They had this amazing view. They might have gotten bored a little bit, but we really only had classes for 3 hours out of the day. And then we were on tours the rest of the time. So they got time to read books and look at the view and just kind of relax and take it all in. I know some of them went to the gym a little bit. It's pretty, this photo cracks me up. Like, take your husband on a knitting trip. He'll have fun, I promise. Um, Here I am with the grocery girls, Jody and Tracy. I met these guys like one other time in real life, and I have to say that they are 100% so much fun, and even maybe more fun than they are on their YouTube channel. And they're a hoot to watch. They're really entertaining. It was so fun to get to spend a week with them and get to know them better. They're really good conversationalists. I have like nothing but phenomenal things to say about them. I miss them. It was really great to hang out. Here's a bunch of us just jumping in with photos. We did have the sun setting, so the light was off, but we were all really happy, as you can tell, enjoying our time on the boat. There was a lot of wine and port on this trip because we were in the wine and port region of Portugal and we got to learn a fair amount about it. So at this stop, we were at the I think this is the Quinta da Rueda dinner, and we did a wine tasting here, and we also learned about their port production, and it was really interesting because we learned what they are doing to kind of combat and make sure that their vines are okay with climate change, because they have a lot of really old vines on this property, and they're learning what to do to take care of them, and then how to grow new vines to ensure that their great production and vines stay healthy. And that was really interesting to learn about. Our tour guide clearly cared and did a really good job explaining what they're doing and how they're doing it to protect their vines. So I guess now sometimes it can get up to like 115 degrees Fahrenheit in the summertime in this area, and that's crazy hot. And it's not what they're used to there, but they're learning how to manage it. Then it was my 55th birthday, and my friend Jen, who came with me, has a very good sense of humor. So I woke up to signs all over my room. She had a sign outside of my room so everybody knew which room was mine that said like warning 55-year-old here. Pretty funny. I woke up laughing, which is the best way to wake up on every day, but definitely your 55th birthday. This was some art that was both in Porto and Lisbon. It's all made out of trash. So that trash bunny is like coming out the side of a building. It's so cool when you get up close to it. It's like all pieces of recycled metal and aluminum and parts of chairs and like God knows what. And then Jen and I found that cat our last day in Lisbon. And he similarly, I think they were built by the same artist, but really cool. And you can see those people at the bottom of the cat to get an idea of how big he was. We were like shocked. These are some photos of tiles that I took when I was in Porto. As I said, this trip was just all about like inspiration and then people with a side of port. That's what I'm gonna say. And I did on the last day in Porto on my birthday get to do a little bit of shopping, and Jen and I found a fabric store where I could buy a little bit of cork that I will show you and some other fabric. And then that yarn in the middle is the yarn that I got for the first quarter cal prizes. And then over on the right is this really cool, I don't know if you can tell, but that is a fox. And that fox is made out of little pieces of wool. You can kind of see him in the back of this photo too. It's made out of these little rectangles of wool. And that star was called the Loja de Burl, which is like I think it means wool mill. And we found out that this company, this shop, is actually products that are all made in the mountains of Portugal, about an hour and a half from Lisbon and like maybe 2.5 hours from Porto, where they collect all their wool and buy it from local shepherds, and then they scour it and mill it and dye it and weave it into fabrics and blankets and clothing. And I'm going to say this close because I really was not that close, but downstairs they had clothing that was made out of their fabric, and they had a pair of wool overalls that were like the nicest wool overalls that I've ever seen. So nice, but they were like 300 euros. And even though it was my birthday, I like to sew. So, and I did not feel like taking off my clothing to try them on to fall in love with them and like talk myself out of it. So I clearly am regretting that decision. I wish I had at least tried them on, because if they hadn't fit, then it would have been an easy decision, right? But they were very cool. Warm wool overalls. Um, I saw somebody saying something over here, but over in the chat, but I'm being bad, and I'll come back to that in a sec. So the last night of the cruise, we played bingo, and normally I'm really good at bingo and I always win. I didn't win. That's my friend Steffi wearing her carte blanche over on the left, and over on the right, Anne, who's from Toronto, won the grand prize, the grand bingo prize, which was a spot in 2027's Danube River Cruise that SPJ Retreats is doing in November of 27. And here's where I tell you that I haven't signed a contract yet, but I'm like 99.9% sure that I'm going to go on that river cruise with them. So you will hear about that when that comes along. I did just see in the comments some hater saying that bingo is all about luck, and I'm just really good at luck is what I'm trying to say. I'm just joking, Catherine. I'm really good at bingo. I'm really good at luck. I know I'm highly competitive. I'm surprisingly highly competitive when it comes to gaming, when it comes to fundraising, not when it comes to sports ball. Not competitive about sports ball at all. I did hear somebody asking about the scarf. If it was the scarf in the photo, that is the answer. If it's the scarf that I'm wearing, this is Buble, and I'll give you links to both of those below. There are kits for the answer in my shop. Buble does not have kits, but you can go stash diving, and it uses like half a skein of sock yarn. Super fun knit. The one I'm wearing is two little Freya minikins. I know you're not a hater, Catherine. Don't worry. I was just teasing you. So I think that was all my photos. Oh, here's a final photo of all the teachers together at the end, looking very happy. I look like I got a little sun that day. We had some sun, which was nice because I have come home to rain, rain, rain. The other thing, I knit, as I was saying, a ton through Portugal. I was like taking pictures of my sock everywhere I went. I also was taking pictures of that Lola and Cheetah that I showed you earlier. I probably should have put this in like with the Portugal photos, but it was in over here. So now let's show you everything I got in Portugal and yarn, and that'll kind of like zhuzh into the prizes, and then I will announce the winners. So things that I got in Portugal is not a lot of yarn. I got this one skein of yarn from Retrosaria that I was from Rosa Pomor that I was wishing I could get for Lola's Choice, but it turns out that they have a really hard time. I think they have a lot more stores than want their yarn than they have yarn to go around. So it's very unlikely that I can get a wholesale account to ever be able to include this for a club. But I asked them, I was like, can I just do it once and then I won't buy from you again, but it will let so many people get to enjoy your yarns. I love this. It's called Pegu Hall. It's really reminiscent of like a Shetland fingering weight yarn. It knits up beautifully. I've already swatched it a bit downstairs. I love this color. It's like so heathered and pretty. It's not like yellow, and it's not orange, and it's not rose. It's like all three of those all together. And at some point it would make a really lovely lightweight sweater. I also think it would hold like a lace block beautifully. The other yarn I got from them that is also 100% Portuguese wool is this Mondim yarn. And this is a sock yarn that is, I believe it is dyed in a mill. It's not hand dyed, and it's got kind of like a little stripe happening every so often. And I think it would make a really nice pair of Novus shorties. So this is another yarn that if they would let me just like buy it once for a club and we could do socks with it, that would be awesome, because what's expensive about this yarn is getting it from overseas. So it's not that it's that expensive when you're purchasing it, but like all the extra fees and tariffs and shipping for you to just get one skein to try is kind of crazy, but that's where clubs can come in handy. So if you all want to light a candle for Lola to have it in a future club, we would love that. So I got those two skeins, which are 100% Portuguese wool. And then I got this skein of yarn, which is not their yarn. I think they get it and get it. They choose like colorways and then get it packaged for them. And it's 55% lamb's wool and 45% cotton. And it's a really nice summer weight yarn. It's like a light fingering weight. I believe it's called, maybe its name is Apricenta. Yep, I think so. And then the colorway is Coast. That's what I'm going with. I've, since I don't speak Portuguese, sometimes I have to be like, is that what you're called? And I'm excited to swatch with this one. This is another one. If they could get it, I would be happy to do it I'm giving you like hints of like what I would love for you to maybe get one day. Probably not all three of these, but one of them. Would be very fun. So I have those. Oftentimes when I travel, I'm looking for yarns that will work well for clubs that y'all can't get your hands on. And I can use like the power of numbers to make happen. The other yarn that I got when I was in Porto, and I got this yarn at a different yarn shop called, let's see if I can find it. I think I wrote it down. Lopo Xavier. And that yarn store has been in the same place since 1934. And this yarn has a really interesting story. It's 100% Portuguese wool. And before World War II, all of the yarn that the shops in Portugal were getting was mostly from Shetland. They were buying Shetland wool. And then with World War II, there was like an embargo and borders were closed and they couldn't get wool, and they started making wool from their sheep. So this yarn base right here has been made since that time, since World War II, when they needed to make their own yarn. And it's really nice. I know you can't feel it. I try to do this like squishy thing so you can kind of like experience this a little bit. It's really, it's toothy, but it's still soft at the same time. It's maybe even like softer if I'm gonna like think about the hand and touch them both. It's got like maybe just a little bit more of a sheen to it than the Peguhall. It's really intriguing. And these two skeins, one of them is gonna go to each one of the winners of the first quarter knit along. So I got these for you guys. I love the history of this yarn and like how old it is. And I think it's enough on the skein to make a one skein project or like combine it with something else. But I think it'll do something. I'm excited to see what the winners end up doing with this really special yarn. Other stuff I got before I show you the other things I also got the winners two Portuguese knitting pins. So I got them each a knitting pin from Lopo Xavier if they want to try out Portuguese knitting with their Portuguese wool. They maybe could pour themselves a glass of Portuguese wine at the same time. That seems like that would be really appropriate. And then the third prize that they're going to get, and I'll announce them in a few minutes, is I have a needle sorter for each of them from Handwork Hardware. And these, I know you've heard me talk about them before. These are my favorite way to organize my double pointed needles. It's basically like a little Tinker Toys thing. So you can take your needle, find the hole that it fits in, and then just drop your needle down in it. I have one that has all of my double pointed needles in it. And then when you need to get your needle out, you just open it up, grab the needles that you need, close it again, Handwork Hardware does have a website. They sell these. I'll give you a link below. I really appreciate Judith who designs these. She designed it with a friend a bunch of years ago. They were both, I think one of them was an architect and one of them was an industrial designer. And they were just kind of trying to come up with a slick way to organize their double pointed needles. It only goes up to size maybe 4 or size 5. And the reason it doesn't go bigger is because I think the whole tube would have to get bigger to hold your bigger needles. So it's just for smaller sizes. Nice. You guys are all gonna like email the shop and be like, please allow Laura Nelkin to buy yarn for her Lola's Choice Knitting Club. We all really want it. I just looked over the chat. Sure, go for it. Let's be obnoxious. Make it happen. Sorry, I had a little frog in my throat. Okay, other things that I purchased before the winters is everywhere in Portugal, there were places selling cork bags. And I've seen some of the cork that was being that was sewn up into bags at my local quilting store, but I really wanted to find my own cork for sewing something for me and Jen from the trip. And we went to this place called Fabric World and we found this cork, and it's not quite the same stuff as my quilting store has, but it is cork with like a fabric back. I'll probably interface it a little bit. It's got a little bit of sparkle to it. I think it'll make a really fun knitting bag, or like one of those crossbody Harrelson bags that I've made 100 of. I'm definitely going to make something for Jen for her birthday next year, because when we were looking at the 2 or 3 corks that she had, she was like, this one's so pretty. Look at all that. Like, it's really textured and almost like mosaicked, almost like those floors in itself. So Portugal is the second biggest cork producer in the world, and they had just tons of products made out of cork fabric, but that didn't really have like a fabric backing to it so much. It's a little bit more like pressed cork. So I wonder if this will actually like hold up better over time or not, but we're gonna find out, aren't we? So I bought that, and then I bought this really lovely rayon fabric at the same time. Y'all know I've been loving sewing lately, and I think that this is going to make the most beautiful summer dress. And Max has been complaining that on camera that my shirts are a little boring and they don't pop enough. So what do we think? This is going to work on camera for future design. So what I really love to do is sew things for future designs for photo shoots, because it allows me to write off my fabric. IRS, but it also lets me kind of like come up with something new for my wardrobe at the same time. It's kind of helps me have an intentional wardrobe. So this color right here, oh, you can't see it, but I can see it. This color looks really good with that, like a lace shawl out of something in this colorway. With this helps it kind of pop a little bit. Those oranges, I just love the way those blues and oranges are playing together in there. Okay, I'll stop. And then the last, I love doing this. We're done with that. The last thing I bought is so beautiful, and I didn't realize how nice it was until I talked to Rosa Pamora about it. But this is a 100% cotton fabric that is milled and dyed and woven in Portugal. And I bought everything that was on the bolt. And if I look at it with you overhead, you can see how gorgeous it is. It's a moire, which means the warp threads and the weft threads are 2 different colors. So you get this like really nice like quality of color right there. It's not totally solid. And then there's these really beautiful overshot stripes. And then I love how they did that one little overshot stripe in the middle. And it's a shirting fabric, so it's, again, camera's so hard. You can kind of appreciate that it's got some nice drape. And I think I'll make myself like a button-down shirt in it, maybe like a short sleeve one, or like a little summer dress. Or my father-in-law is a bit of a hippie, and he loves like a big flowy pant in the summertime. And this would make amazing, like comfy, kind of like that Arthur pant style, bob pant style. I think I've made those Aeronite pants from So Liberated from him before. And this would make those beautifully and just be like really light and a lot of air. So we'll see. It's going to be something something fun right there. Throwing to the side. What else? That's almost everything I bought except my birthday present to myself. Whoops, get that out of the way. I bought these fish. So everywhere in Portugal, there's like pottery and tiles being sold. And I found a lot of sardines being sold that were not this intricate or interesting. And I was at one place early on in the trip in Cascais, which is like this coastal town near Sintra, where I saw some sardines somewhat like this. And I didn't buy them because I thought they were expensive. And I didn't realize that they were actually like handmade and real. And then when we got to the end of the trip, I was like, I want to get some of those for our kitchen because we've been slowly working on our kitchen over the last year or two. And so I ended up getting 5 of these. I only have one up here right now. And they all have these like adorable, somewhat like, look at this guy's face. He's so spicy. He's like a little like mischievous, but he's got a lot of character. And I just love all of the hand painting on him. And it's signed on the back and numbered by the artist who did it. And I'm really excited about them because I think they're going to become a memory that we'll have for like a long, long time in the kitchen. We'll see how long it takes to get them. We have to figure out how to hang them up and what to do. And I'm sure it'll be like a whole thing because everything is, but we'll try. So that's my trip to Portugal and my purchases, more fabric than yarn this time, but yarn, I can always get more of it once I swatch, which is kind of how I do the yarn thing. Winners. You want to hear the winners of the first quarter knit along. So this year's first quarter knit along, we did just like last year's in that it was happening both in the Ravelry group and the Facebook group at the same time. And that's because I know some people do Facebook more and I know some people do Ravelry more. And I just wanted to be like totally inclusive. So all you had to do to be part of the first quarter knit along was be knitting one of my designs. And there were weekly prizes. We did every other week, depending on if you were in the Ravelry group or Facebook group. I kind of alternated where I chose winners from just for posting pictures of what you were knitting on. And then at the end, I chose from all the finished projects in the Facebook group and then all the finished projects in Ravelry and chose a winner from each. And those winners are going to get the handwork hardware tube. They're going to get the Portuguese knitting pin and that special skein of historic Portuguese yarn. And the winner from Facebook is, let me pull up the photo. The winner from Facebook is Lou Ann Muriel Hughes. She knit a roofline with a kit from my shop and it came out beautifully. This was a kit colorway. I don't remember the color name off the top of my head, but I hadn't seen it knit in person and I love it. So sometimes I put together colorways where I'm pretty sure they're going to work. They always do, but you can't knit up every colorway in every design. And then the Ravelry winner is Beach Knitter Beth and her name is Beth. She's from Pennsylvania. And so I will, when I'm done with the live or tomorrow morning, I'll tag both of them in Facebook and Ravelry. And then y'all just have to get in touch with me with your address and I will send out your prizes. At the same time, everyone who won bags in March, so I sewed some of those bags and I bought some of those bags. Everyone who won bags in March, those will go out by the end of this week too. And I do those randomly. I just like package everything up, and then I print out labels and I slap them on. So I never know like who's getting the bag that I sewed or who's getting another bag or what. And that's pretty fun. As I said earlier, I've been sewing a lot, and in March I just had to take a little knitting break to get some inspiration and just kind of get some distance from it. And I finished that quilt I showed you, and that is off with the long arm quilter. I'm hoping any day that she's going to text me that it's ready. I can't wait. It's so hard to not go in there and be like, how's it going? How's she looking? Can I have it back? I still have to make the binding. So this weekend I might be a good girl and make the binding so that I'm ready for it when it comes back, and then watch a bunch of videos about how to put a binding on a quilt because I've never done that. I wish my friend Lois, who's watching right now, was still a long arm quilter because she used to be one and I would have sent it to Lois, but I don't think she has her long arm quilting machine anymore. So that's not a choice. but I did sew some clothing for the trip because I needed some new jeans and I wanted a new jumpsuit. I've been kind of wanting to sew a jumpsuit for a while. And my friend Jackie has a online fabric shop called Frankie Rose Fabrics that is based in Trumansburg. It's an online shop, and she had a sale at the beginning of March that she let locals come in and shop, which is always dangerous because I spend like 3 times as much when I'm in there and I'm seeing stuff. So I got fabric to make a jumpsuit, I got fabric to make pajama pants, and I got fabric to make jeans, but I ended up not quite using that yet. So these are kind of bad photos of the pajama pants and the jumpsuit. The pajama pants, you are sure to see them when I am just like hanging out in future photos. That fabric is so fun. If you like to sew with flannel, this I forget it's like an art gallery fabric, maybe. I think it's an art gallery fabric. I'm not the best at the fabric company names, but it's so beautiful. And I wore them on the cruise with my like robe from my stateroom, and I felt like kind of fancy when I went to get my coffee in the morning. Um, and then that jumpsuit that I'm wearing right there, I sewed, and you'll see good photos of it when we go to take the Lola's Choice photos because I'm going to wear it in that. And I'm going to admit that the top is a little tight on me. I have to like wear a bodysuit and suck it in, and it looks a little better if my hand's in my pocket. But I did wear it a bunch on the cruise. I think the trick with this jumpsuit is to never wash it, so it just kind of keeps stretching out a little bit. And it is the Isola jumpsuit from Daughter Judy Patterns. And I'm gonna make another one. The bottom fits beautifully. I'm gonna end up making a second one. This one's like turning into a wearable muslin. I used a Italian denim, like a soft Italian denim from Frankie Rose for it. And the top just needs like, I need like another kind of inch or half inch. So I think I need to just redraft the top to give myself a little more room. And I also didn't have the right length zipper. So the zipper's in there like a little creatively, and it's fine. I wore it a lot. No one noticed on the cruise, but I know I could do better with the second one. And it was a really fun knit. So I know I'm going to knit another one. And then the other thing I knit that I'm super excited, sorry, sewed, that I'm super excited to tell you about is this pair of barrel leg jeans. And I used a pattern from Smart Patterns, and I was just Googling barrel leg jean patterns the other day, and here, I'll tell you about it and then I'll come back to the photo again. So I was Googling barrel leg jeans like in January or February, and I stumbled across this German site that had like a configurator that was almost like Amy Herzog's custom fit, but it was for sewing patterns, and it was a little more like plug and play. It was I never really played with custom fit that much, so I can't speak to it. But basically the way it works is you go to her website, you just go to smartpatterns.de, and you choose like women's or men's she has like styles split into genders, and then you choose your shape. And sorry, for women she has like 7 or 8 shapes, like skinny jeans, trousers, there's all these different shapes. One of them was barrel, so I chose barrel, and then I had to choose like the volume of barrel. Like you could have super barrel, medium barrel, small barrel, then you could have side panels, or you could have, and then you could have knee darts, you could have darts coming up from the bottom of it. You had like 3 choices for the yoke on the back of the jeans. So if we go to the next pattern, you can see on the back of the jeans a little bit in this photo. I chose like the upside down yoke, but you could also have a V yoke. You had choices for the way you wanted the fly to be, the way you wanted the front pockets to be, the way the crotch depth. There were like 4 choices for crotch depth, and then choices also for the width of the waistband. So like a lot of choices to customize. It was almost overwhelming. So I went with like the medium barrel, the knee dart, the bigger pocket, the medium crotch depth, the side panel, and the O-shaped yoke, and the narrow waistband. I believe. I have the file if anybody's like, what exactly did you do with yours? And then what you do is you take all your measurements and you fill out a whole file. And as you're filling out your measurements, if you measure wrong, it'll be like, if your hip measurement is this, then your crotch measurement should be within this or this number. Like it knows like what measurements don't make sense based on your other measurements, which I know it's just programming, but I thought the interface was so cool and so well done. And then I'm filling it all out and I fill it all out. And at the very end, it asks like what size your bum is. And then this is really funny because I have an overinflated sense of ass. Like I think my derriere is very large. And that is because when I was a kid, my parents were constantly, I have like a little bit of a curve back there, and my parents were constantly telling me to like tuck it in. Which whatever, it was the 80s, that's what parents did. I love them to death. It's just the way it was. So they were always telling me to like tuck in my ass. So I just have this thing that like my ass is huge, even though like my ass is proportional to my body, it's fine. But when I was going to fill out the thing, you were supposed to do like 1 through 5 for your ass, and I put down 4. And then if you look at the pants, you can kind of see that like there's too much fabric in the bum back there. I'm kind of sticking my ass out in that photo, so you don't see it as much. But on the photo to the right, you can see there's all this extra fabric back there. And I'm really like a 2.5 for my bum. So they're so sweet, the people there. And I was trying to talk to them about it in Instagram, and I don't think they understood when I said overinflated sense of ass, right? Because German, English, that one didn't come across. But they're so sweet, and they like offered me another credit if I want to redo it. But I know how to draft the pattern, and I already changed the back on it a lot because I had to fix it for that. So I think I'm okay, but I'm going to try another one of their jean shapes at another point and just like fix my sizing measurements, because I have a file that has all of those measurements in it. So this is a very long breath way of saying if you are a sewer and you are a confident sewer, because the pattern it wasn't a written pattern. You went to different websites for different steps, and there was a lot of jumping around. There was a lot of me like going back to my computer and like watching a video and then coming back. But this is probably like the 4th pair of jeans I made, so I had some background on it, but not an easy first jean pattern sewing for somebody. But I also learned a lot, like a few things I'll show you in my next live. I learned this thing about like one of my sewing feet that I never knew before. I learned a few sewing tips that are like made me a better sewer in March, which is very exciting. So those were fun. I'm excited to make another pair of them, having like redrafted bits of the pattern and knowing what I would change a little bit more. But they are also very, very wearable. I wear them a lot. And the only other mistake I made with them is when I went to make them, I didn't have non-stretch denim. So I made them in stretch denim so I can wear them like 2 or 3 times before they have to be washed, because they just like stretch out and they get too big. So get ready if you have any questions for me. If anybody's thinking about Knit for Food and traveling next year, and if they're going to be around for Knit for Food, know that we're changing we moved the date. Like the Knit for Food date is a moving target. So it's always, Knit for Food is always when I'm in the country, and I am going to Japan with a group of you next year. So we're probably going to do Knit for Food before we leave for Japan, just so you know that. I know that, I thought I saw that come up in there. But any other questions now? Oh, nice. Somebody said baby got back. If anybody's got some questions, now's the time to throw them into the chat while I tell you about what I am listening, reading, and watching and eating. And then I will answer your questions, and then we will say goodnight. So I have been listening to a book on tape on and off called The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny by Kiran Desai. Really enjoying it. It's a little depressing, so I listen to it in waves. I've been balancing that out with podcasts. I just listened to a great podcast with Amy Poehler and Brandi Carlile, and they sang some Indigo Girls together. That was really funny. So if you like Amy Poehler's podcast, Brandi Carlile was on it this week. That was a great listen today. I enjoyed it. Kept me kind of up and happening. Reading, I finished Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaghy, and I loved it. I love all of her work. work, and I loved that one as much about all of her other books that I have read. I also, in a newsletter, told you about a book I read called The Resistance Knitting Club by Jenny O'Brien. And that is historical fiction about how knitting was used in World War II to get secrets to the Allies through knitting. And it's a fun read. It's not like maybe the best written book I've ever read, but it wasn't that flawed, and it kept me going, and I loved reading it. I might have stayed up a little too late reading it once or twice, which I try not to read books like that. And then right now I'm reading a book called The Librarian Spy that is set both in France and in Lisbon. And my friend told me about it right as I was leaving for Portugal. It's also a World War II book, and I kind of have a rule about no World War II books in a row, or like no more than 2 in a year. So I'll probably take a break after this from reading books about World War II, but I'm really enjoying it. It's historical fiction. It is about espionage in both Portugal and France. And Portugal's role in World War II was interesting because they stayed pretty neutral. Although the Germans were there, the Germans didn't occupy Portugal the same way that they did in France. And so I'm getting kind of a different perspective about World War II that I hadn't read before. Watching, I didn't do a lot of watching while I was away, but I have been watching The Pitt on HBO Max. That is like the show I'm kind of keeping up with right now and waiting for the next one to come out. They come out on Thursdays. I also on the plane watched a comedy called Is This Thing On with Jordan Jensen. Sorry, it's directed by Bradley Cooper, and it has Will Arnett and Laura Dern in it. And I really like Laura Dern because she looks a lot like my friend Marissa from Creative Thursday. But the reason I watched it is because there's a comedian from Ithaca. Her name is Jordan Jensen. She's very inappropriate, like even inappropriate for me sometimes. But she was in this movie, so I really wanted to see it and like see just kind of what role she played. And interestingly, she was like the most fun and least depressing character in the whole movie. It's supposed to be a comedy, but it was like not very up. It helped me go to sleep on the plane. And then Max and I are going to go see Project Hail Mary tomorrow, which I'm excited about as like my post-birthday date party with Max time. And then eating, it is Passover. I'm so sorry. I meant to say that at the very beginning of this. Happy Passover to everybody who is celebrating Passover tonight and this week. Samach Pesach. I think I got that right. I try, right? Catherine, you can correct me in here. I love haroset. I make it every year with deviled eggs, and I just need to go get some gluten-free matzah. I'm hoping that they have some at Wegmans. And haroset is really good with horseradish, so I always get horseradish, and it's basically like chopped up apples and walnuts and cinnamon and a little sugar, and it's really, really yummy on matzah with horseradish and deviled eggs on the side. So I'm planning for that this weekend. That's my like Passover meal that I'm planning for myself. So last month I did not do a giveaway for the live, and I don't actually have anything this month for the live for a giveaway because everything that I have I'm kind of saving for my Knit for Food donors. So if you want to win something from me, go ahead and donate to my Knit for Food team. If you go to Knit for Food and scroll down, just click on my face, or you can just click on donate and then choose my name from the drop down box and donate that way. No amount of donation is too small. I think the smallest that Give Butter can take is $5, and there's no limit. You could donate $1 million if you got it lying around and you want to help feed people. I'm all for that. I am looking at all of your comments. Somebody suggested, Sue said maybe I need to condition my cork so it doesn't dry and crack. I don't know what cack is. Sue also said a piece of pool noodle to fit into the hole screwed to the kitchen wall. That's an interesting idea. So my husband has a 3D printer, and the first thing he was like is, I can 3D print something to go in there, but we could also try to like carve out a pool noodle so he has the shape for figuring out the 3D printing. Good times. That's why it's going to take us 2 years to get those sardines up on the wall. And I don't see any other questions. Oh, some people are going to Portugal for the eclipse. Awesome. Yeah, there'll be great stores to visit while you're in Portugal. Lucky you. And Catherine's going to Mallorca. Nice. I did Nanette hear that there's going to be a movie coming out about remarkably bright creatures. I think it's coming out like this spring, like maybe in April or May or June. So I'm really excited about that. I don't see any other questions, which means I did a good job covering everything. Thank you so much for listening tonight. I know that was a lot. I have so much to share. When I do these lives, I end up spending all day preparing for them, getting the photos ready, getting my notes together. I'm so glad that you appreciate them and you watch. I am supposed to remind you to like this video and make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate that. That really helps me. There's a lot of effort to do this kind of thing. And if you do that, it kind of helps YouTube know that you like me. And I enjoyed hanging out with you and telling you everything. I hope to see you next weekend during the Knit for Food Zoom. I have lots to share. Make sure you get my newsletters, and that is where little details will be. Buffy and Max just came in to tell me it's time to be done with the live. So thank you so much for watching. Happy knitting.